But if they won, hey, more power to them. Jim Harbaugh, and we'll see. But it's going to be a tough task. I do think, like we talked about before, Eddie Cox, I do think that they have a chance to beat the Georgia Bulldogs. But one thing we do know is going to be physical. And you know Georgia, you know with that style defensive line and those athletes on the defensive side of the ball, the way they like to run around and swarm around the football, you know they're going to be physical after what happened to them in that SEC championship game against Bama. So you know they're looking to get back on track. And you know Michigan wants to run the football. They want to be physical. The same thing they did against my Buckeyes. Had all my Buckeyes fans sick. Actually talked to my ex-teammate. He was actually leaving the club right when the game was over, Eddie, that Michigan-Ohio State game, and he was mad. And when we hung up, you know what I said? He going to cry when he get in the car. He going to cry when he get in the car. Hey, but we'll see what happens this upcoming weekend with that. I'm still rolling with Bama.
Okay, well, let me ask you, Greg, about the Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
Who are they going to start at quarterback? Because that's a question I hear everybody asking other people when they talk about this game coming up with Michigan. Do you go with Stetson Bennett or do you go with JT Daniels? And you got to weigh the options of, you know, who's played throughout the season, and then again also look at who gives you the best chance to win.
Yeah.
And because Michigan, we all know they're not asking any of these questions amongst themselves. They know who their studs are on offense. They know who's going to get the rock. You know it's going to be Haskins and McNamara and company, and you know what they are on defense.
Who just got back from an ankle injury.
Yeah, you know what you're getting right now. You know Georgia. I'm not sure they even know who they're going to start at quarterback. I imagine they have an idea, but none of us really know what they're going to do. And I think the decision that they make is going to be the biggest decision they'll make, considering or when it comes to how this game turns out in the end, and if they are able to knock off Michigan and possibly see Alabama one more time. But what do you think, Greg? Who do you think gets the nod?
They're probably going to go with Stetson Bennett because he's played the most throughout the season. The thing about Georgia is I don't think they really believe in either one of those guys as far as leading them, as far as through the passing attack, so to speak. What Georgia's going to try to do is they're going to try to be physical, and they're going to take their shots when need be to keep Michigan off balance and keep them guessing, keep them honest, so to speak. So they're going to try to be physical just like Michigan is going to try to be physical because they know that they don't have a dynamic quarterback to really get that passing game really going where they can really just lean on the passing game and really depend on it. So I think whoever they play, they're pretty much going to say, hey, just don't beat us. Don't turn the ball over. Throw the ball to the right person that's open and just try to protect the football more than anything, and they're just going to try to out-physical. It's going to be a real physical game. Both of these teams are very physical. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing it, seeing what happens. I do think Michigan has a strong chance to win that game because, like I said, I still think, okay, my pick, I think Georgia's going to win. I think Georgia's going to win, but I think Michigan, I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think because Michigan is going to control the clock and they're going to run the football and they're going to be physical. And like I stated a few weeks back, one thing about Michigan this season is they're dynamic on the outside. Now, they don't have a Gary Wilson or a Chris Olave or a Njigba.
Man, boy, you
I have to go back to my Buckeyes.
Bring it back to the Buckeyes.
I have to go back to my Buckeyes.
I was just waiting. It was a countdown until you did just that. Because I
Here's
know
my point.
this is what I call crawfishing, man. You're crawfishing. You wear that shirt. You're pumping your chest, bumping your chest about Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines. You want them to bring home the title.
This the Mo City Cool shirt.
And then you get in here, and I expose you, and your phone's blowing up. Everybody from Columbus, they're disowning you. Herbie's even getting on the phone saying it's over with. And then now you're crawfishing, and you got to bring the Buckeyes up somehow. But, hey, I understand how it is, man. Hey, whatever pleases the crowd.
But you know what? Let me say this. Like I said, all my boys know I'm ride or die with my Buckeyes. And like I said, the Michigan Wolverines, they better get theirs this season in these playoffs because once they come to Columbus next year, it's going to be the same result as it's been damn near for the last 20 years. They're going to get smoked. So this is their chance. And like I said, this shirt is some reverse psychology. I don't know if you remember back in the day when the Miami Hurricanes played Penn State in that national championship game, which Miami actually lost. I still think Vinny Testaverde got paid off in that game. But I digress on that. But I will say this. They wore Penn State's, other than wearing that Army fatigue at one point. But like I say, back in the day, you used to wear your rival's jersey just as a just as some gamesmanship or just to kind of get at them, so to speak. So this is some reverse psychology. And like I said, to be honest with you, it's strictly a coincidence. But, of course, me and Eddie are having fun with it. I wasn't going to renege on wearing the shirt because maybe I just might jinx the Michigan Wolverines. Maybe I just might jinx them, Nishay. So we shall see. We shall see. But I still think Bama is the team to beat. Nick Saban, again, they're right back in familiar territory, right back vying for a national championship. And I still think Bama is going to take it all with the Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young. Bama just has way too much talent on both sides of the ball. But we'll see what happens with Itchigan. Because, I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm itching in this shirt right now thinking about it. But we'll see what happens, Eddie. So who are your picks to make it to the national championship game?
It's going to be Alabama, and it's going to be Michigan. That's who I'm riding with. That's when we first talked about it, when the stage was set, the table and the bracket was set. That's who I was going with. I think Alabama's going to have a cakewalk there with Cincinnati. Now, we know that we really don't know what to expect from Cincinnati. They may give Alabama trouble, but everybody sort of expects Alabama being the buzzsaw that they are and what they've always been, especially in the college football playoff. Everybody's expecting them to go ahead and take care of business with Cincinnati, and then it just comes down to this Michigan and Georgia showdown, whether or not we're going to see a Big Ten SEC matchup or an all SEC college football title game. But those are my two picks. Now, as we move on, Greg, if I know we already know who you're going with. As we move on, I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys as we transition into Georgia, the NFL. You're going with Georgia into the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys coming up with a big win this weekend over a Washington football team that seems to be completely unraveling. I wonder where they go from here. We'll get into that later. Right now, it's all about the Star as they clinch the division with a big thumping of the Washington football team. Now, Greg, what I want to ask you is, how does Dallas handle these last 2 weeks going into the playoffs? How important do you think it is for them to, either keep rolling along like they have been now that they've kind of found their stroke again, or B, get some guys rested up, make sure guys are not contracting COVID-19, whatever you can do to make that happen, and get into the playoffs as healthy as possible? Which one of those are you weighing more, or do you think the Cowboys should weigh more going into this postseason now that they've clinched their spot?
Well, here's the thing. I'm still mad at Baker Mayfield for throwing those 4 interceptions because we could have been vying for that number 1 seed if the Cleveland Browns were able to knock off the Green Bay Packers, and they lost 24-22 due to Baker Mayfield, a guy who I vouch for time and time again. But 4 interceptions is not going to get it done against a Green Bay Aaron Rodgers-led team. So I think the Cowboys, what they want to do right now, and the thing about it, COVID, like I said last week, Eddie, I don't know who's playing and when. It is too much to keep up with at this point. I mean, football, basketball, whatever the case may be, I don't know who's playing and when. So some of these games have been skewed because of teams playing without some of their best players. But all these teams have been ravaged by the COVID situation. So it's no excuses. So that's just what these teams have to adjust to at this point. I think the Cowboys, since they're just a game behind Green Bay, I still think you want to go into the playoffs rolling. Now, they're peaking at the right time right now. Now, granted, they haven't played the best competition. During this 4-game winning streak, they've beaten the likes of the Washington football team twice, the Giants, and I forget what other team was, but it wasn't a playoff caliber team. So, but
the Eagles.
The Eagles. Was it the Eagles?
Then they got a win over. No, let me see. I'm sorry, not the Eagles. That was earlier in the year. You're talking about just recently. Yeah, we've got Raiders. They lost to the Raiders. Saints, to the Raiders. That was a big win.
Saints.
And then Washington, of course, the Giants, and then Washington again, taking care of things in the division.
Yeah, and the Saints, of course, the Saints lost to the Dolphins last night. Dolphins lost 7 in a row. Now they've won 7 in a row. They're looking like they're the team that we thought they would be. But the Saints, of course, they're playing with, who were they playing with? Taysom Hill at the time? So they're decimated at the quarterback position, even though their defense is legit. We saw what they did to Tom Brady a couple of weeks back. But I think the Cowboys, you want to be careful. You still want to play all your guys because you still have a chance to get that number 1 seed. If for somehow Green Bay falters, which I don't know if they will in these last 2 games, but it looks like the Cowboys probably are just going to have to go to Green Bay if they can win that first game. It looks like They may have to go to Lambeau Field
And we all
get it
remember
done.
what happened
Oh, man,
last time we were
I'm tired
there.
of Green Bay.
The catch.
And
the
the
not
catch,
catch.
and then the catch to Jerry Cook. But, I mean, they've always done the Cowboys in. Of course, the Cowboys got the best of Brett Favre and those guys before Brett Favre and them had that nice run. But, of course, when the triplets were there, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, and Emmitt Smith, when the Cowboys were dominating in the early 90s, they got the best of Green Bay. And then Green Bay went on their run. But I think the Cowboys, to answer your question directly, I want to see the Cowboys go in to the playoffs with all guns blazing. I don't want them to take their foot off the gas. Now, if it's obvious in that last game that they play that they're not going to get that number one seed, then maybe you rest some players. You see how things play out. You see Ezekiel Elliott, he's getting back to form, wearing that big, bulky knee brace. But last game, he looked like Ezekiel Elliott. The last game, Dak Prescott looked like Dak Prescott. And now he has his weapons back on the outside. Amari Cooper was vouching for the football. They came out and they made a strategic attempt to get him the football early and often. And I like the fact that Amari Cooper did that, because you normally don't hear Amari Cooper say too much of anything. But I like the fact that he came out and said, hey, look, throw me the damn ball, in which they did. But, of course, you have the other receivers as well, Gallup. So I want the Cowboys to go in clicking on all cylinders on both sides of the football, because we see after Trayvon Diggs got his 11th interception, best cornerback in the game right now, I don't know why Washington came out trying to throw his direction. I don't understand that. He's like a Deion right now. Don't throw his way. You see what Deion said on that commercial, Prime never liked double coverage. So, hey, but Michael Parsons, Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, you saw the big play he had. But again, Dan Quinn has these guys playing at a high level. They feel like they can beat anyone in the league right now. So the Dallas Cowboys are riding high right now. And as long as that offense and defense is clicking at the same time, of course, we're going to get Tyron Smith back this week or maybe next week. We definitely need him. That's a Hall of Famer right there. Need him at that left tackle position to solidify that run game. But what the Cowboys want to do, they want to continue to establish the run game more times than not, try to eat up the clock. And especially if you go to somewhere like Green Bay or Tampa, you definitely want to keep Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady off the field as much as possible. So you want that offensive line to gel, get some kind of cohesion, and play physical. You want to play a physical style of football, and then let Dak take his chances when need be to those receivers. So I want my Cowboys, to answer your question, I want them to continue to play their players, but be smart about it. Maybe cut down on the pitch count some, but go in with all guns blazing.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, Greg. When you look at this Cowboys team, after they lost 2 in a row to the AFC West, to the Chiefs and to the Raiders, coming out and getting wins against the Saints and the Washington football team in their first matchup of the season, you didn't really feel like the Cowboys were clicking on all cylinders. Even though they were finding ways to win the game, they still were not putting up those performances like they were early in the season, where they looked dominant on both sides of the football. And particularly, I talk about the offense, because they seem kind of stuck in first or second gear and not really being able to get into overdrive like they typically are able to, or like they did against Washington in this past game. And that's huge. So I agree. They cannot afford to take their foot off the gas. They just can't, because you can't take the chance that maybe you get back into a slump when finally they've just found their rhythm. Now, they're going to have 2 tough games to end the season. They've got a Cardinals team.
A disappointing Cardinals team. Right. Who's playing for something. So that should be a good test for both teams.
And then when you close out the season against the Eagles, they're going to do their best to try to spoil whatever Dallas has going for them.
I like what Jalen Hurts is doing.
And definitely they have been playing well. Now, they're banged up. No Miles Sanders. You're going to probably get a heavy dose of Jordan Howard at the running back position. But either way, the Cowboys need to finish strong, and they need to finish, like you said, extremely healthy. So if you start putting players on a pitch count, I think I'd start up front with the offensive line, and I wouldn't do it with your skill position players, but get those big guys some plays off if you can. That way they are refreshed going into the tournament.
Hey, great point, Eddie. Great point. And speaking of pitch count, real quick, before we talk Texans, and, of course, we're going to talk some NBA and we're going to break down some of these past weekend's games. Again, in the NFL, right here on the screen, right here, we have the Golden State Warriors playing right there, but that's a repeat, as a matter of fact. But we saw what they did against Phoenix just on Christmas Day, and that was without Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins. Golden State is a team to beat. And we're going to talk about the Lakers. What's up with the Lakers? Anthony Davis is out, of course. But speaking of a pitch count, real quick, we hadn't had a chance to talk baseball, but the MVPs, my boy Bryce Harper in the National League and Shohei Ohtani in the American League. So congratulations to those guys, and I'm really looking forward to baseball season again, because the only thing that B. Harper is missing right now is that World Series ring. He has 2 MVPs, so he's lived up to the billing as far as the phenom and all this and that. But he needs that World Series ring, so we'll see what the Phillies do. Of course, I don't want them to get that at the expense of the Houston Astros. I still want Dusty to get his first ring. But if Dusty is not able to do it, I want to see my boy Bryce Harper get that elusive World Series ring. And in baseball, all you need is one.
Yeah, so as you can see, ain't nothing changed, Greg. Still rooting for Bryce Harper year in and year
fan.
out.
That's my guy.
If you're watching the sports court on a Tuesday like you usually would, you better have your seatbelt on, because nobody takes a hard right turn like the one and only Greg Beatty. He'll come with some stuff out of nowhere sometimes, and then he throws baseball in while we're talking about his beloved Cowboys. I don't want to move on from the Cowboys just yet, because I want to ask you, a report came down, I think it was today, the Jacksonville Jaguars have requested to interview both Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, as well as Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich and defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. They're going to 2 of the best teams in the NFC, and they want to interview those guys. I want to ask you, Greg, as it pertains to the Cowboys, you know who got fired. Your boy Herb.
I want to get your take on him right quick before we move on.
Whenever they come calling, and if they decide to hire one of those guys, Greg, who would you rather see go? It's going to be tough, but who do you think it hurts the Cowboys more to lose? Would it be Dan Quinn, or would it be the young and up-and-coming star play caller in Kellen Moore?
I mean, I would hate to lose Dan Quinn at this point.
You see what having that type of defense does for the Cowboys?
Yes.
Because the offense has been good for years.
Absolutely.
But he comes in, and now all of a sudden they're vying for the first seed in the conference. I think you're right. I think I would be, if I'm Jerry Jones, I might be shaking in my boots a little bit, thinking that the Jacksonville Jaguars just might poach Dan Quinn, the guy who came and cleaned things up for Dallas on the defensive side.
I hope Byron Leftwich gets that job. If not Byron Leftwich,
he has the ties.
I want Jim absolutely, former Jacksonville Jaguar himself, quarterback. If not him, I would like to see Jim Caldwell, who should be a head coach in the NFL right now.
You know, I thought he had a legitimate chance to be the Houston Texans head coach. I feel like he wanted to make some changes in the front office that Cal McNair didn't want to make, and that's why ultimately it wasn't Jim Caldwell who got the job. But I thought he was a great candidate and would have been a great hire for the Texans. So, yeah, I think you're right. Jim Caldwell definitely has a shot. He still has people in NFL circles that believe in him and think that he can put a winning football team on the field and build a winning franchise.
I agree. And before we talk about your Texans beating the Chargers, who are my adopted team in the AFC, pretty much essentially just knocking the Chargers out of the playoff race. I mean, a terrible performance by the Chargers. But real quick, I know it's old news right now, but what's your take on Urban Meyer getting fired? I think you probably saw it coming, huh?
Oh, it was a long time coming. I mean, I had my reservations about him going into the season, the things you were hearing coming out of training camp before we heard about, the kick heard around the world with Josh Lambeau. And he was subsequently cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars after that preseason. So it's a bad look all the way around. You know how I felt about it when Herb missed the plane. Basically, it's just a really, really disappointing situation, because you and I sat here like a bunch of other people did around the world, around the country, and thought, hey, man, whoever snatches up Urban Meyer, whatever NFL franchise decides to give him a shot, they're going to have something, something brewing. He just has a way of building winners. But what we didn't realize is that he's not a type of guy that grown men are going to look up to and respect.
Well, see, that's obvious now. And the thing about it, Eddie,
and that's huge in the NFL. It's the number one thing you have to have as an NFL head coach is the respect of your team, and he never had it in Jacksonville.
I mean, obviously. And that's surprising because, of course, being an Ohio State Buckeye, him doing what he did for the Ohio State Buckeyes, all the reports that I was always getting about Urban Meyer. And see, that's the difference when you're winning. Now, he probably could have gotten away with some of that stuff if Jacksonville was winning some games, but you're not going to get the respect of those guys when they're continuously losing. And all the reports I was getting out of Columbus was how cool of a guy Urban Meyer was, how much of a player's coach he was, how much he had the pulse of his team. And it seems like when he got to the pros, I think he was trying to juggle between, okay, how can I get these guys respect and still? So I think he went in with the wrong approach. I mean, I think he went in, like when you say he kicked the kicker, you know, he probably could have gotten away with that in college, but now you have guys on the team who's making more money than you. And so I think his approach was wrong, and I think he was juggling between, okay, how can I be a disciplinarian and still get these guys respect? So I think he probably went to Jacksonville, and I think he probably wanted to show that he was some disciplinarian, and it just wasn't boding well. And I think he was so concerned with his losses. What Urban should have realized was, because if you looked at every interview he did, of course, the mishap at the bar and missing the flight, not taking the flight with his team, that didn't go over well with his players, of course, and the organization, especially after a loss that you probably should have won. But the thing about Urban Meyer is he should have respected the process. I think Urban, every time you saw him in an interview, the only thing he was talking about is how much he hated losing. And he was more concerned about his legacy and what people were going to think of him losing that first year. But what he should have realized was it's a process. And you have to give people more credit than that. People realize that it's a process. And people are not going to look at you as a loser your first year. I mean, you get the first pick in the draft. You get a top-notch defensive player. You have Travis Etienne coming back, who's going to help bolster that offense. So I don't think he was looking at the big picture. I think he went about endearing himself to his players the wrong way because he was he couldn't find that balance on how to endear himself with grown men. I think he was trying to show them that he was the boss, and that was that. But the thing about it is, if you're going to act like that, you have to have some victories behind you. And also, not only that, you have to be able to realize that again, it's a process, and you just have to let the process take shape and take hold. And I don't think he did that. And again, he just got caught up, and that's what it was, man. But Urban,
look,
I hate that because I thought the guy, for all accounts, they say he was an a-hole.
Yeah, well,
they say he was an a-hole.
I hate being wrong, but everything that has come out of that situation with Herb, with the lies and just nobody trusted him. He never changed a thing about the way he was doing things, even though people brought it to his attention that this was going to lead to his dismissal. Mm-hmm. He continued to do things.
See, that right there.
And then now that's why I don't feel bad. I mean, I'm upset that I was wrong, but I mean,
I was wrong too.
I think that there's no way in hell Urban Meyer will coach at the NFL level, and it's going to be interesting to see what level or what tier of a college program, if any, gives him another shot.
I think
now, hey, I want to hold the phone here. Breaking news.
Okay.
Legendary or Hall of Fame NFL head coach and broadcasting legend John Madden is dead at 85.
What? Oh, man, sorry to hear that. He has
passed away. It's breaking news. It broke just in the last 30 minutes.
Sorry to hear that. You're talking about a legend, like you said.
And, they had the documentary for him on Christmas Day. They've been putting this thing together. Yeah. A great piece. And then 3 days later, he is now gone. And his contribution to football, it cannot be quantified. I don't even have the words to quantify what he's done to help bring football and make it as popular as it can be, especially with the kids and the development of the Madden football games. Mm-hmm. Those things are iconic. They're flying off the shelves every year. It's the only football game that you have to have. I have bought a copy of it every year ever since I was probably about 6 years old, still to this day. You love listening to John Madden. Mm-hmm. It sucked when he got a little too up there in age to continue to do the broadcast, in the booth like he used to. But, man, what a big loss to the NFL family that this is. My condolences to the family and to everybody right now dealing with the passing of John Madden.
I concur, Eddie. You're talking about 1977 NFL head coach, Super Bowl winning head coach with the Oakland Raiders. Of course, Al Davis loved him. Al Davis loved him. And he say, that's your team, the Raiders. The Raiders. So, hey, John Madden, of course, you saw what he was able to do. A player's coach, but also a disciplinarian. The players love to play for him. I'm talking about Ken Stabler, all those guys from those 70s Raiders, those great Raiders teams. Probably should have won more than one Super Bowl, but retired early as well. And then went on to broadcasting. Probably could have coached for another 10 to 15 years if he wanted to, but wanted to do something different. Didn't even think he wanted to be a broadcaster early on. And then when he got the opportunity, he was so unique, and he really conveyed to the audience everything that was happening on the field in a very unique way. A student of the game, and had fun in the process while doing it. So he was a joy to listen to because, boom, and all those extras that he would do, things that he would do and noises and sounds that he would make to just add to his commentary. The commentary that he was putting on, was legendary. Him and Pat Summerall. So may he rest in peace. I'm talking about a great commentator and a great head coach. And like you said, the Madden game, it speaks for itself. So, and here's a guy, when he was with the Raiders, even though the Raiders' motto and Al Davis' motto was just win, baby, John Madden understood that. But at the same time, those guys would run through a brick wall for him. But at the same time, he held those guys accountable. And he let them be themselves, but he also, again, he held them accountable, and they had tremendous respect for him as a head coach. And like I said, he probably could have coached for a number of more years, but went into broadcasting and was a great broadcaster. I'm talking about one of the best ever.
So may he rest in peace. He put the color in color analyst,
yes,
without
he did.
a doubt.
Yes, he did.
Just the way
That's
he
a great way to put
things. He was funny, entertaining, but definitely informative, and all those things you have to be a good color analyst.
Absolutely.
And he was above and beyond one of the best of all time, and he definitely will be sorely missed.
And real quick, Eddie, about John Madden and what I was going to say about Urban Meyer real quick, one thing about John Madden when he was a coach, he always had the pulse of the team. And one thing that Urban, in college is different. In the pro, I thought he had his pulse on everything in college, but you get to the pros and you're kind of loosey-goosey. A lot of times he didn't even know guys that were playing. He made a comment about a guy that hadn't even played in the game that he was speaking of, and he was talking about how that guy had played a number of snaps. So he didn't have his pulse on everything that was going on in Jacksonville, and he just was not invested enough. And that's one thing that John Madden was. So, hey, he made his bed. He has a lie in it as far as Urban Meyer is concerned. And John Madden, may he rest in peace. We're talking about one of the best to ever do it. Now, the Houston Texans.
It's going to make it hard when you catch the documentary again and when it comes on, or even whenever you see, I know the NFL Network's going to air America's game that they in the Football Life, John Madden, both productions. One covers the Super Bowl winning team, and the other, of course, who covers John Madden, his life. But it's going to be hard not to get emotional watching those things, from here on out, just how big of an influence that he had on the sport and on everybody, people like me and you who love the sport very much. He's a big part of our lives.
Absolutely.
And, it's not going to be the same without him.
Absolutely. I concur. Houston Texans beating the Chargers.
Hey, I don't think – I was telling my buddy this the other day. I don't think there's anybody that I know or that I talk to that could have predicted what happened over there at NRG off Kirby on Sunday. It was a three-phase, all-cylinders type of performance from the Texans, and that's just not anything that we've seen from them since, I'd say, week one against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Coach Culley might keep his job now, man.
We can get into that a little bit
Okay.
later. It depends. There's a lot of factors to that. There's a lot that factors into whether or not I think the Texans decide to keep Coach Culley, and a lot of that depends on who's going to be the quarterback of the future and who is available to be hired. Who do they like? Who do they want? What type of system do they want to run? Are they waiting on Josh McDaniels, or are they looking, other routes, other directions, college? It depends on who they want to really be the coach and if that guy is even available. I could very easily see David Culley sticking around whether or not the Texans won this week or in these last 2 weeks, because of the state of the franchise and where they are right now in their rebuild.
And you know what, too? I think it's only fair that you give him another shot. I mean, look at the position that you put David Culley in when he arrived. I mean, of course, you don't have Deshaun Watson, your franchise quarterback. He's playing with a depleted team, a lot of untalented players, even though the last couple of games, especially on the defensive side, Lovie Smith has shown that he can get those guys to play at a high level. And, of course, I think your guy is Davis Mills now. But the situation that he got put in, I mean, I just think it will be fair. But, again, it's the Houston Texans. You never know what they're going to do. I don't think they care about being fair. And so I think he deserves another chance, especially after, again, you're playing without Deshaun Watson. You're playing with a team that's devoid of talent, and he's doing the best he can. Now, if something else comes along, another coach like you're speaking of, where they just have to cut their losses or cut ties, so be it. But I would like to see him get another year. And to answer your question about the quarterback, Davis Mills, he played great. I think he's playing better, pretty much better than any rookie quarterback right now.
You know, all the comparisons are being made to him and Mac Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mac
you've heard
Jones
me make
that comparison.
Being in New England and knowing what they have there, I don't think anybody would think that David Culley and Tim Kelly could hold anything to Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. So how much of that is a product of just how good of coaches those two guys are as compared to where the talent, you know, where the ceiling is for Mac Jones. We know he's very smart, and we know he can do some things, especially in an offense designed for a pocket passer like he is. Mm-hmm. But I'm not so sure people have said you can make the case with what Davis Mills has been able to do with the Texans whenever they've been, you know, sorely depleted of talent on the offensive side of the ball, sometimes not even able to get out of their own way. The play calling at times at stretches through the season has been horrendous. There's no running game until, of course, this past Sunday. Mm-hmm. You could say what Davis Mills had done, that if you had maybe switched these guys and put Davis Mills in New England, that he might be outperforming Mac Jones and would be, you know, putting a case together for Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. I think Davis Mills came along a little bit slow. Everybody wants to see like what happened with with Deshaun Watson when he came in his rookie year, a guy who just busts right out of the gate and immediately starts to make magical things happen. I think you have to remember that Deshaun Watson's a very special athlete, and he was allotted, you know, the freedom to do those things in that offense, something that you could tell early on with Davis Mills when he was getting his first few starts, the Texans were not ready to do yet. Yeah. They were not ready to let him open things up. They weren't ready to let him go away from that primary receiver to take a shot down the field, which we saw him do and connect to Chris Conley, against Los Angeles over the weekend. Those are things they weren't doing early on, but now that he is getting more comfortable, now that they're seeing that he gets it, they are allowing him to start to make some decisions on his own, start to make some plays on his own, do some things that when he starts to do those things and we see him do those things, we're going to start to have a lot higher respect for the capabilities of one Davis Mills.
I actually already do. I honestly do. And, of course, he can always get better. But that's why I always say if you're a rookie and you have a chance to play. And, of course, you've seen him get better over the weeks because he's playing. He's learning things. He's already a smart guy. The guy went to Stanford. I've seen him make every throw. So, again, as long as they put the requisite weapons around him, I think he's going to be just fine. I mean, if you look at what Rex Burkhead did, he rushed for over 149 yards? I mean, so they pounded the Chargers. Very disappointed in the Chargers, the way they played defense. Of course, they were without Derwin James and Bosa. But, again, every team right now is battling that COVID situation, and you never know who's going to play on any given Sunday or Saturday for that matter. But I like what the Texans were able to do. I like what Davis Mills was able to do. He picks and chooses his spots very well, and he's being smart with the football. Now, he's thrown some interceptions, but he doesn't seem to really make the same mistake over and over. Again, he's a cerebral, smart quarterback, and I've seen him make every throw. Now, he doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but he can make every throw.
He doesn't have a lollipop either.
He doesn't have a lollipop either.
There it is. Too. He's shown the ability to throw the football down the field. In particular, when I talk about that throw to Chris Conley, I mean, that was a big-time throw, dropping the bucket. The defender was right in the back pocket of Conley. He had a step, but it wasn't like an underthrown football couldn't have been intercepted or batted away. He had to drop that over the shoulder right into the hands of Conley, and Conley didn't have to break stride. And when you see those things and you realize that that was sort of a decision that Mills made when the play wasn't designed to go to Conley, but he saw something, he took a chance, it paid off, and he dropped a dime.
He has a nice touch.
When they do things like that, when young players do things like that, you start to get really excited. You see why, people talked about Davis Mills. If he sticks around, he stays at Stanford one more year, especially with this crop of quarterbacks. We'd be talking about, the Texans drafting Davis Mills with this high pick that they have coming up in this draft, because he would be the best out of all these quarterbacks that are available, even better than Kenny Pickett. He'd have been projected to be the top quarterback on the board, and now you're starting to see why. He comes into the league a little bit early. He's a little bit raw. Texans take their time with him, but now they're starting to unbolt the training wheels and get him off that bike, and he's really starting to get rolling. And I hope he continues to show this type of development going into the next two and last football games of the season. If he does, I think that is definitely another reason why you may want to keep around Coach Coley and Pep Hamilton and this group of coaches if they are getting that type of development out of one Davis Mills, especially when you look over and you see the way the likes of Matt Nagy and other coaches around the league have struggled to develop their young quarterbacks. And you see somebody having some success, maybe you let them finish the job that they started.
I agree. And I was just going to say that. Now, that really should put David Culley in a good situation, because they've seen the success that Davis Mills has had as of late. And they see the way Lovie Smith has that defense rolling. And plus, just as a whole, one thing about the Houston Texans, and even though they don't have the best record this season, they come out and they play hard every week. For the most part, they've played with energy every week. Now, and I also think, just like the players need to play, this is David Culley's first year as a head coach, and I think he's learned some things as far as clock management, things that he would do different next season.
Yeah, there's a few things.
Look at
we
McCarthy.
Saw in the Browns game whenever you decline a penalty on third down just so you can punt. I mean, that was about as egregious as it gets.
I know.
And I know
Hopefully he learned from that.
There was a bunch of people that I know were ready to run his ass out of town right then and there. But, you are right. The guy hasn't even been a coordinator before. He's only been a position coach. He does have a lot of knowledge. He's been around somebody in John Harbaugh,
and the players love playing for him,
who's done things the right way for so long, who came from being a special teams coordinator, to a head coach, and has had a tremendous amount of success. That's where he spent a lot of time. He takes a lot of things from what Baltimore does, and that's where he's learned a lot from John Harbaugh. But still, you gotta expect some of these moments where things are gonna come up in games where he's got to just learn by trial by fire. You know,
absolutely,
trial and error.
Absolutely,
you make a mistake, you learn from it, and next time you don't let it happen again. You move on. So far, Texans are improving, Mills is improving, and Culley is also improving. Things starting to look up finally for the Houston Texans.
I agree. And, again, they're on a 2-game winning streak, and let's see if they can finish it with a 4-game winning streak. Let's see. So I like what Davis Mills is doing, and I like the way the Texans looked last week, even though it was at the expense of the Chargers, because I wanted to see the Chargers get into the playoffs and Justin Herbert and those guys. But obviously that probably won't happen now. But they still have a lot of promise as well. But you go to Tampa real quick. Of course, you have the Chiefs doing their thing. We'll talk about them in a second. But you go to Tampa real quick because AB was back this past weekend, Eddie. 10 for 101. That's what I said last week. You can use him as a possession guy. 10 for 101. That's 10 yards a catch. So, again, Tom Brady was happy to have his outlet back. And he showed that. He threw him the ball a lot. And, of course, you're without Mike Evans and, of course, Godwin. So AB is going to get a lot of opportunities. But
definitely.
AB, one thing about AB, he gets open.
Yeah.
He gets open.
The guy stays in tremendous shape. I mean, he's one of the best route runners.
Absolutely.
When you talk about Antonio Brown, you always talk about the feet. His feet are tremendous. Mm-hmm. And as long as his feet are good, he's going to be real good in this league. And when you've got a quarterback like Tom Brady, who knows how to throw receivers open, doesn't miss in tight windows, then all you got to do is get a little bit of separation. And for Antonio Brown, that's like stealing candy from a baby. Yeah. And he proved it this past weekend. And they're also going to activate Brashad Perriman off of the COVID-19 list.
Okay.
And he's going to get some time. And, you know, he's a former first-round pick, a guy that has a lot of speed and has finally shown some flashes of being a really talented receiver when he has been able to stay healthy and play for Tampa Bay and with Tom Brady. So even though they're reeling no Godwin, and we don't know the status of Evans, if he's going to be back or when he's going to be back, if he will play this next weekend just yet, but they definitely have some guys that they can get the football to, and Brady has proven that he only needs one or two guys that he can count on, and he could bring home a victory. Tampa Bay's sitting pretty,
well, you look at Keyshawn Vaughn. He went out there and rushed for 70 yards in the absence of Leonard Fournette. So they're just plugging guys in. They're getting healthy on the defensive side of the ball. But, again, AB is such a weapon. That's why they were like, no, we're bringing him back because we're about winning games and we're about winning Super Bowls. And did he kill anyone? No, he didn't. Of course, the COVID situation, that's very serious. You shouldn't have a vaccination card that's not legit. But it was no doubt in their mind that they were going to bring him back because Tom Brady wanted him back. And, of course, they were not going to announce it early on because they didn't need the media uproar. Let's just wait until it's time for him to come back and ease him back in, because if we say, hey, we're not going to bring him back or we're going to bring him back right when he's suspended early on like that, that's just more distractions for your team. That's just the media is going to sensationalize a lot of that. And so they just steered away from that. And then when it was time for him to come back, he came back. And you saw what he was able to do. Of course, he kept himself in tremendous shape because that's what he does. He's a workaholic as far as being a workout machine. The guy's a machine. I mean, he's not slowing down at all at that wide receiver position. And I hope he slows down with my Cowboys, if my Cowboys play him, though. Hopefully the Cowboys will have something for him. But that's neither here nor there. That's down the line some. Of course, the team in the AFC, the team that I picked to go to the Super Bowl and meet my Dallas Cowboys. Stay tuned. We're going to talk some NBA as well before we get out of here. But the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, they're right back rolling now. You remember weeks ago, everyone was concerned about the Chiefs. And I was laying low. I wasn't saying too much because I'm sitting back saying to myself, yeah, they look bad right now. But that's Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And that's Tyreek Hill at wide receiver. That's Travis Kelce at tight end over there, even though Travis Kelce didn't play this past weekend because of COVID. But the Chiefs are right back rolling, and now that defense is right on par, and the offense is back rolling again. Patrick Mahomes has slowed down. He's taken what the defense gives him now. Everything doesn't have to be a knockout shot. He's methodically moving the ball upfield if need be. They're leaning on the run game, even though Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's banged up with a shoulder injury, but they're leaning on the run game more, and that's keeping the defense on their heels. And Patrick Mahomes is playing smarter. He's checking the ball down, and he's making these completions and getting everyone involved. I mean, he completed passes to like 9 different receivers in the last game. I mean, but what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball, they move Chris Jones back to the middle, and he's causing all kinds of havoc. And, of course, you have Tyrann Mathieu in the back end back there who's leading that defense, who's a great leader. And one thing about Kansas City on the defensive side of the ball, they play fast. They swarm around the football, and they play very, very fast, like I said. So I think Kansas City is right there, the team to beat again in the AFC. Of course, again, things can be kind of skewed these last few weeks, even throughout the playoffs because of the COVID situation. I mean, you don't know who's going to be playing and when. But that's just what they have to deal with right now, and you have to find a way to win. Who's ever on the field, you have to find a way to win. And a lot of these teams are going to be missing key players. But your Buffalo Bills are right there with Josh Allen, the way he looked against the Patriots. Now, the Patriots in that first game, when the Patriots beat them a few weeks ago, they passed 4 times, I think it was?
Yes.
But the wind was, 70-mile-an-hour winds. And, of course, the weather played a lot into what Buffalo wasn't able to do. This time, Buffalo was in ideal weather situations, and Josh Allen showed that works to his benefit.
They're another team that, although they showed to have a hiccup here and there, they now look like they're playing their best football as we get down to the last 2 games of the season.
You're right.
It's going to be really important for them
to finish.
Started
out inconsistent, but now they're clicking.
Yeah, they need to finish strong. They're one of 4 teams right now sitting at 9-6. Another one we're going to talk about bear stripes on their helmet. We'll talk about them right after we finish talking about Buffalo.
Who was that?
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They're at 9-6, coming off a big win against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. But Buffalo, we all thought, they might be the surefire number 1 seed. You might have to go to Buffalo for an AFC Championship game. They
You
cooled
definitely
off
thought it.
They
I thought
cooled
the
off a
Chiefs.
little bit, but here's the deal. Now that you're getting ready for the tournament, you're playing your best football. Josh Allen is feeling comfortable. You feel like maybe it might help them after what happened against New England in that weather game. It may help them if they have to go to Kansas City, in January.
Okay.
If you have to go down, maybe they can put themselves in a position where they may have to play a Miami, or Los Angeles if they squeak in, because right now it's wide open.
They
in the
didn't punt out
AFC.
one time against that tremendous Patriots defense.
Yep.
They didn't punt one time that entire game. I think that's the first time since Bill Belichick has been head coach that the opponent has not punted, because, of course, he's known as a defensive guru. Now, I don't want to write off the Patriots just yet, even though Mac Jones didn't play well last game, because Bill Belichick is going to get his team ready to play, especially when it matters, and he's going to try to take away what the other team does best. He tried to do that against Josh Allen. It didn't work. He even rushed for 65 yards. I made some jokes last week about how athletic he is, and he's just outrunning everybody. And they ran the ball a little bit more in that last game. But like you even said last week, they have to continue to lean on the run game, like we were talking about the Chiefs and about the Cowboys. I think that will help Josh Allen if you give Singletary and Moss more action and let them run the football. And, of course, they have a gritty, grimy defense. And so Buffalo and the Bills in the AFC right now seem like the teams to beat. Now, the Colts.
And don't forget, with Buffalo, I think a big part of why they are having that success again, Dawson Knox was out for a little bit. He was hurt. He's come back. He was a little slow getting back up to speed, but now you can tell he's back to that
rolling.
early season form. Mm-hmm. And when they've got him, and it's Sanders and Diggs on the outside, and then you got to worry about Allen using his legs, as well as if they're starting to get the running game going. Now, that's what I call for them, working like a well-oiled machine. Mm-hmm. Dawson Knox creates big-time problems for defenses whenever you're trying to decide who are you going to stop because of how explosive they are on the outside, and then with the young Dawson Knox tearing things up in the middle.
Absolutely.
So having him at 100% right now, I think that's huge, and it's another big reason why they've had the success they've had over the last couple of weeks.
There it is. Now, let's just see if they can keep that momentum rolling. But I guess the point we're trying to make is, the point I'm definitely making is, anytime you have Josh Allen on that team, who's always, the last couple of years at least, has been in the MVP conversation. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he's going to give them a chance to win. And you're talking about a legitimate dual threat, and you pointed out the receivers that they have. And, again, if they lean on the run game even more just to keep the defense honest, like I like to say, who knows what Buffalo can do. I'm still picking the Chiefs to come out of the AFC. Of course, the Colts with Jonathan Taylor, who's running like a madman right now, ran for, 108 yards in that last game that they played. But
might they be, even though they weren't 100% on the offensive line, might they be one of the best teams, our best built teams to play this cold postseason bracket, and make a run at a Super Bowl? We know they play indoors. If they have to go to Buffalo and it's snowing, like the Dickens, do you think that they're scared to turn around and hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor 45 times, and see what happens? I guarantee you they aren't, because they know that guy, especially with the hogs they have up front,
right.
They know that guy is dominant on the ground, best running back in the league right now, with Derrick Henry sideline, and we'll see as he may come back last week of the season. We'll see what that does.
I don't trust
if he
Tennessee.
Is rusty. I'm right there with you with Tennessee. I don't really trust him. But Indianapolis, I feel like Indianapolis, just as well as they run the football, as big as they are up front, and if Frank Reich and Carson Wentz can continue to have these games where they kind of get that magic, that lightning in the bottle they've gotten at times together. If they get that brewing, man, Indianapolis is going to be real tough to beat. But one of the toughest teams to beat.
And they played without Darius Leonard last game.
But
they have to trust Carson Wentz more, because you never know which Carson Wentz you're going to get. That's the thing.
You know what JT you're going to get.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And I liked him coming out of Wisconsin. You're talking about powerful and has world-class speed. Jonathan Taylor is a beast, and he's having a tremendous year.
Three-down workhorse.
Yes, he is.
Now,
yes, he is.
Let's talk about another team that has positioned themselves for a spot in the postseason, and they're vying for that 3 or 2 seed. That'd be the Cincinnati Bengals coming off a big win against the Ravens as they fall closer and closer to the bubble. I think they are right now on the outside looking in to the playoffs. Cincinnati,
I like what Josh
big
Johnson was able to
impressive
do.
win,
Threw for
and
300 yards.
especially Joe Burrow setting the Cincinnati Bengals franchise record for passing yards, passing Boomer Esiason, as he throws for over 500 yards. Only a handful of guys ever in NFL history have even done that. And it comes off a week where Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, had to make a comment in a press conference about how, hey, look, nobody over here is going to buy a gold jacket for Joey Burrow just yet. And then Joe Burrow goes and puts on that performance against their defense, takes him out to the woodshed.
Yes, he did.
I think Joe Burrow planted his flag in the AFC North and said, hey, the Cincinnati Bengals, we might win this thing, and we're here to stay.
Well, check it out. He threw for 525 yards. I think that's the 4th most in NFL history. I still remember when Warren Moon did that to the Chiefs. He was just, man, that run and shoot, and this was in the 90s, just throwing the ball. I mean, everything was a completion. They just ran roughshod over the Kansas City Chiefs. But Joe Burrow, 25 years old, you have Mixon at running back, and I don't know if he's going to be there next year because of the contract situation. He wants to get paid. But then
they
you
certainly would like to have him back because he makes them explosive.
Well, check it out. Right, he does. But all those guys, all those young weapons they have, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. Now you have 2 wide receivers, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that are over 1,000 yards. You have Joe Burrow over 4,000 yards. And then you have Joe Mixon over 1,000 yards. That's the first time that's happened
that's probably
in
the
NFL
best
history.
Trio
all these guys are
in
under
the NFL.
25.
Yeah.
All these guys under 25. Joe Burrow, I mean, what can you say about the guy? Of course he took those comments and he took them to heart. He said as much, and I like the way he handled himself in the press conference when he kind of admitted that it probably had a little something to do with him going out and playing the way he did, but not really, because he's going to do what he's going to do. But one thing about Joe Burrow, you know he has moxie. He's coming off a knee injury, but you're talking about a great leader, and these guys love playing for him. He's more mobile than people give him credit for, even coming off the knee injury, but he can make every throw. And he's a legitimate superstar quarterback. And again, he's only 25 years old. This is his 2nd year in the league. I think, of course, he came into the league at 24, but quarterbacks these days, they're playing till they're 40 years old. But with that trio of receivers, and people have to remember, we talk about Jamar Chase and how great he is. He's going to be the rookie of the year on the offensive side of the ball, obviously. But T. Higgins, people have to remember what he did at Clemson. People have to remember that he was the #1 wide receiver coming out of high school when he came out of high school. So you have 2 tremendous receivers on the outside to go along with a great quarterback who's a thinking man's quarterback, but he also is a tough guy. He's not going to take any crap from anyone, and the guy knows how to play the game. So now, if they're able to keep Joe Mixon, oh, man, the Bengals now they've been inconsistent as well this season. Right now, they're in the driver's seat in that division to win it all.
Right now,
yeah, so we'll see how they finish out the season, and we'll see if last game is something that we're going to see moving forward more consistently. But the talent is definitely there, and those guys they're must-see TV.
Well, you can get must-see TV January 2nd whenever they take on the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's going to be a big game when it comes to we know the Chiefs already clinched their playoff spot, but it is going to be a big game when it comes to the seeding in the AFC as things are tight.
Both of those guys have to come play.
It's a very tight race.
Both of those teams have to come play.
There's there's 7 teams that are going to make it, and there's probably 10 teams that are vying for those spots right now.
Absolutely.
And it's going to get real tough. Even the Raiders still have a chance to get in there. If they win their last 2 games, they're in.
Yeah.
So this is it's about as tight as it
gets.
And
kudos to the Raiders.
The NFL has to be, just feeling themselves right now when you think about what they try to accomplish when it comes to parity in the league and having, where we're getting down to the end of the season, and there are still,
there's so many teams vying for position.
Double-digit teams that have a chance to make the playoffs. This is exactly what the NFL wants. The NFL doesn't want teams being able to rest their players in week 17 or 18. They don't want teams locking it up early and then taking their foot off the gas. They want competition all the way down to the very last week. They want it to be like college football, where every week of the regular season matters.
Right.
And then they want to have the best playoff tournament and best playoff experience, in all the pro sports, and that's what they're setting up for right now. I cannot wait for this whole thing to take off.
And next week, before we get into some NBA, before we get out of here, next week, of course, we'll talk more about the playoff scenarios and really going into the playoffs. But like it is just saying right there, I mean, there's a lot of teams still vying for position in that playoff hunt. So these last 2 games, I don't think there's too many teams that's really going to take their foot off the gas because everyone is jockeying for position. Again, the Cowboys can still catch Green Bay. If Green Bay slips up, they can still catch Green Bay. And that matters because you want to play at Jerry's World instead of going to Lambeau Field. So all that matters. We will definitely see. Now, real quick, Eddie, what do you think about the Rams? I don't necessarily – of course, the talent is there on both sides of the ball. But Matthew Stafford, even though the Rams won this past game 30-23 over Minnesota, a very tough, gritty Minnesota team, and Kirk Cousins always playing some tremendous defense, even though they haven't had the season that a lot of people has expected. But you have Odell Beckham, who they still use as a possession receiver right now. And speaking of possession receiver, Jalen Waddle in Miami, having a great year. But what is he averaging? 10 yards a catch? I mean, so I don't know about.
He's been phenomenal. Waddle
has. He has. But I want to see him. I want to see.
He's a big reason
Tua
why.
Open it up and throw the ball to him.
He's a big reason why, though. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa in that game against
they need to open it up.
He was throwing the ball downfield. I mean, they were letting him chunk the ball downfield. They were setting up play action.
He has
pass.
a high completion percentage.
He did throw one interception in a situation where play action pass, throw the ball 40, 50 yards down the field. But he came right back on the very next drive and connected on a big play that set the Dolphins up. So when it comes to Tua, they are finally starting to let him throw the ball down the field.
Okay, see, I didn't see the game. I know he has a very high completion percentage, but I thought it was mostly because there's a lot of short passes. I mean, look at Jalen Waddle's numbers.
At this point, the reason why they've won so many games, when you get down to the nitty-gritty and it's nut cutting time and it's time to make the playoffs, and if they do, they're definitely going to have to do more than just nickel and dime their way to score points, and they know that. So you might as well take the wheels off right now and let Tua do what he can. And I think that I think he's played well.
Hey, you know what? Oh, I do too, definitely.
And it makes you wonder if they're still in the Deshaun Watson.
Well, see, that's why I was going to go with that. I think they've assured Tua that he's their guy moving forward. So I think he's playing with a lot of confidence right now because he knows that he's the guy for that team moving forward. So I think he's settled in. And, of course, playing, he's gotten that experience as well. And he's talented. We saw what he was able to do at Alabama. But you have to give Coach Brian Flores, and that team and that coaching staff. But he's a tremendous coach.
Oh, yeah, because a lot of franchises you'll see that'll go through a 7-game losing streak, they'll
mail it in.
They'll pack it in, man. They'll close up their tent
and
go home.
Right. Now, one thing now, the Rams are a team that's the complete opposite. They're totally invested, and they're trying to win this season. You saw what they were doing last season. I mean, they've gutted their team, and they've added all these players. It's about right now.
And
now, do you trust the Rams and Matthew Stafford?
And I thought that's where you were going when you're talking about, they squeak out a win against the Vikings. It's yet to be seen what Stafford can do in the playoffs. We don't know. We haven't seen him play under this type of pressure. I think that he's got probably the best head coach for that situation. I think anybody, when it comes to like an offensive game plan, if it's not Andy Reid, I think right behind him, you'd have to say Sean McVay can come up with some of the best game plans out there. And I think with a guy like Matthew Stafford, when he gets in the playoffs, I certainly think McVay is going to have him prepared. But what has me excited about this Rams team, number one, is their defense is as vicious as it's ever been. Aaron Donald's not slowing down. Jalen Ramsey is making plays in the passing game and in the running game. The guy's a stud. But it's the up-and-coming, or the upcomings, I should say, the come-uppance, I should say, of Sony Michel and how well the Rams are running the football. And we still know that Henderson.
They say Cam Akers may play this week.
That's a possibility because, Henderson.
Bro, he just tore his Achilles 6 months ago.
Henderson is going on IR.
Great for him.
Akers could be. He might find an opportunity to play.
That's amazing.
I don't know. It sounds crazy.
That's an amazing comeback story.
We've never heard of anybody coming back that quickly, I don't believe.
Bro.
But here's the deal, you are in a pinch because you're losing Henderson, but Michel's played so well. If you could find somebody else.
Former first-round draft pick, by the way.
Yeah.
Sony Michel.
If you could find somebody else who can take those 8 to 10 carries that you need to give to spell Sony Michel, and it doesn't have to be Cam Akers. You don't have to risk bringing him back too soon when you don't have to.
They say he may play this Sunday.
Yeah,
obviously he's doing something in practice.
If that is true, that would be incredible.
It will.
But I would be, if I didn't absolutely have to have the guy, and Sony has proven, over the last couple of weeks that he can handle a heavy workload and he can perform in this system. I'm not so sure I'd take that chance, but we'll find out what they do. I mean, I'm no doctor. What the hell do I know? I'm just a welder and a talking head. But I would be so afraid of a minor setback or a major setback, and a major setback is certainly what they can't have with their young, speedster and scat back in Cam Akers.
Well,
now,
see,
go ahead.
Hopefully they've done enough MRIs where they see that Achilles is healed. I mean, if they're saying he's going to play this week, obviously he's been ramping it up in practice. So hopefully, like you're saying, they don't bring him back too soon where he ruptures it again. Yeah. I mean, if you look at Shaq Barrett in Tampa, now he has a sprained MCL and ACL. What did I say about these ACLs when they're sprained? Sometimes it's a partial tear in there, and that's not good news.
If it's grade 2, it's a partial tear, and you're going to have.
And
to
as soon as he comes back,
it can tear fully.
Right.
We've seen that happen. That happened with Deshaun Watson.
We shall see.
Partial tear in a game against Seattle his rookie season, and then in practice the rest of it went.
Yeah, sure did.
And that's what what happens sometimes.
Sure
a big game on the horizon for the Rams against the Ravens on Fox this Sunday.
Okay.
Ravens desperately need a bounce back win, and the Rams could pretty much sew things up and clinch their division if they get a win this weekend. So, hey, big games on the horizon for the Rams. But if you ask me how do I feel about them going into the playoffs and am I a believer in them, the way they've been running the football, the way they've been playing defense, I think they'll be just fine because they have enough firepower and enough,
they do have that.
And enough toughness, the ability to turn the football over, the ability to sack the quarterback. They have enough of that going for them on defense to make up for if Matthew Stafford throws an interception here or there, throws a couple of interceptions because they're trying to push the ball down the field. Don't get me wrong. You got to take care of the
real deal.
Hey,
he's superb.
Hey, he's superb. He blew fantasy football up this year. Cooper Kupp,
the best receiver in the league.
Number one receiver or the number one player on rosters that are in the championship game this weekend, which I'm in one of them, but I don't have Kupp. He is the number one player that these rosters all have in common. It's Cooper Kupp. He's had a phenomenal season. The guy is unbelievable. And that's another thing, too.
What you have coming up from the
Stafford,
defensive side.
He doesn't have to do it all himself. He's got a lot of good help in Higbee and Kupp and the likes of those guys at Jefferson, the guys that can really – and then you add OBJ. You look at OBJ in Cleveland, they couldn't figure out what the hell to do with him. It never worked. Yeah. And he never had a good game. And he comes to L.A., it takes them all of 1 week to figure things out. And now he's a big part of what they're doing going forward. I'm high on the Rams.
Okay, I got you. And now I'm not disrespecting
I wouldn't be
the Rams
excited
at all.
to see them in the playoffs at all.
Me
especially
either, because
when you've got Donald bearing
That's
down
what I was about
on
to say. You have Aaron Donald, who's the best defensive player in the game.
He
still,
can blow a game.
He can cause havoc. And then you have probably the best cornerback. I mean, I say Trayvon Diggs, but for the longevity of things, of course, Jalen Ramsey. So, and then you have Von Miller. Eventually, Von Miller is going to get going. But like you're saying, the defense can cause havoc and they can make plays, and they've been playing physical as of late. So if Matthew Stafford, we know Matthew Stafford can make every throw in the book, and that's why they went and got him. Now you have OBJ, and I think Sean McVay is slowly incorporating him more, and I'm sure he's going to design even more plays for him and really, really have him shine moving forward. And I think OBJ is happy there, and he's looking forward to the playoffs, and he's looking forward to being an integral part of what they do in the playoffs. And I think Sean McVay is looking forward to the same thing, and I think he's going to utilize every weapon at his disposal to give his team the best chance to win. So the Rams are definitely in the mix. I don't know what's going on with Arizona right now, but I'm not going to count them out. We'll see what happens with the Cowboys this week. I hope they go on a 4-game losing streak when they play the Cowboys this upcoming weekend. But Kyler Murray, I mean, that team has been playing soft as of late. They've been beating themselves more times than not. Of course, they don't have DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm not ready to count Arizona out just yet because of the exploits of Kyler Murray and just the talent that they have in their team. So it's wide open in the NFC. And, again, I think in the AFC, it's the Chiefs and the Bills I think it's those two teams, and then it's everyone else. So we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens in that regard, and we'll talk more NFL next week. But let's talk just a tad bit of NBA, even though it's still early on in the season. You saw what Golden State, like I mentioned earlier, you saw what Golden State was able to do against a very good Phoenix team who was just in the finals this past season on Christmas Day. Now, granted, you don't want to put too much in a regular season game, but again, Phoenix played with their full complement of players. Golden State was without Andrew Wiggins, who's probably going to make the All-Star team this year. At least he should, averaging close to 19 points a game. And they were without Jordan Poole. And they were without Andre Iguodala. And it shows you when Golden State, it was some players that Weatherspoon and all these guys they were playing, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Chizu or Chiaz, whatever his name is. And I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but whoever they incorporate, and this is what I'm saying about Bob Myers, and whoever they and of course Steve Kerr, whoever they incorporate, it seems like they come in playing. They know the system, but more importantly, what I notice about Golden State, those players, because they bring those players in that you never heard of, but they come in with confidence. They come in feeling like they belong, and they come in there and they play their role. They don't get without the confines of what the offense is trying to do. Again, that team is always connected on the string. And, of course, you have the leadership. You have the leadership of Steph Curry, who's playing at an MVP level, of course, the greatest shooter of all time. But then Draymond Green, who sets the tone. And like I've been saying all along about Golden State, they've won 3 rings, but they're not resting in their laurels at all. They want it bad. But the way they play defense, every possession, Draymond Green, but just everybody on their team. And, they're the team to beat. And, again, a guy by the name of Klay Thompson is coming back real soon, along with James Wiseman. But I just want to point out that it doesn't matter who they put on the floor. Look at Gary Payton II. Gary Payton, this dude, he's going to be integral in what they do in the playoffs because of his defensive prowess. Now he's getting confident in shooting the 3 ball. But again, and this is a testament to Steve Kerr, he has those guys, no matter who's playing, he has those guys prepared, and he has them confident. That's what really stands out to me. Those guys are very confident. Now, the Lakers, on the other hand, I don't know what's going on with the Lakers. Now, we'll say this. Matter of fact, I know what's going on with them. Of course, they're not playing with any effort right now. They're not playing with any effort. Russell Westbrook, I don't like that trade right now. And LeBron James, he's at a point in his career, 37, Eddie? Tomorrow, I think it is. You look at LeBron James' numbers, and it's amazing what he's able to do still at this point. The guy can go for 30, 10, and 10 at any given moment. The difference is now he's not that guy that can just put a team on his back like he used to. And no matter who he has on the team, he's not that guy anymore. So he's going to have some help. They got rid of Caruso, who's a defensive player, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and now they've replaced him with some guys who don't really play defense. You have Carmelo Anthony, who I love. I like the way Carmelo has been playing, but they don't have that defensive presence, and they just don't have the legs. Russ doesn't play any defense, as athletic as he is. Of course, Anthony Davis, we've talked about how injury-prone he is, but I still do not want to count out the Lakers. I still think Golden State is winning it all. Now, we could talk about Utah. We could talk about all these teams, of course. But the Lakers, they're not playing any defense right now. They're discombobulated on offense. And, again, LeBron can't do it by himself. And they just seem like they're a team with no kind of chemistry. And I don't know where they're going. But as long as they have LeBron on the team, if AD gets healthy, I'm just not ready to just write off the Lakers like that, especially with 3 Hall of Famers on the team like that. Golden State is my team to beat. Now, the Nets, Eddie, Harden.
Hold on. Before we move on from the Lakers, you got throwing a lot at me here, man. We're going from team to team.
Well, go ahead. I didn't even know you wanted to talk Lakers.
Well,
I just thought that was
I think I want to talk a little bit about LeBron because I feel like you're right. He's not that guy anymore. He's not the guy that no matter who's around him, he's going to be able to will that team's way at least to the conference championship series. That's just not going to the conference finals. I don't see him being that guy anymore. Yeah. I feel like You know, you're
More
not ready. You're not
ground-bound.
ready to write the Lakers off. I feel like things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And
They may.
and if that's the case, I don't think they're just going to have time to catch up to some of the teams that are going to separate themselves. I mean, the way the playoffs,
Grizzlies looking good.
the way they do the playoffs now, you know, ever since COVID-19, the way it's set up with the play-in games and all that, maybe they get in on the back half there. But as far as, I don't think they're going to be one of the top 8 teams when we get to the final. The final standings, as right now we're approaching the midway point in the NBA season.
They've been hovering around 500.
There's too much dysfunction. All right, I know right now inside that front office they're at a crossroads because they can see the writing on the wall. Mm-hmm. Do they try and move on? You don't trade a player like LeBron James, or do they trade Anthony Davis? Do they see if they can find a package to where they can get a few more guys that can help LeBron James? Because it's having Anthony Davis is great, but if you had a couple of guys that could really help out with LeBron James, if you had a handful of guys, and it wasn't just Anthony Davis and LeBron James and the seemingly washed up Russell Westbrook, although he's still very talented, he's just not a good fit for what they do. And
he can't shoot.
All the reports that I've heard coming out of Los Angeles is that things are starting to fracture there, in Los Angeles, and the relationship between LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, and how it pertains to the direction that the
Russell
team is
Westbrook.
going. And then also, you hear talks about, and I feel like it's probably getting leaked out of LeBron's camp. Is LeBron leaving after the season's over? Is he going to try to get out?
I was about to pose that question to you. What about LeBron James in the trade?
Is he going to go back to
this
Cleveland?
Season?
So I'm hearing a bunch of rumors about. I don't know if it would be. It would be unprecedented to hear, about LeBron James getting traded.
He's
but
still playing, but he's still LeBron James.
Yeah, he's still LeBron James. Could it happen? Yeah, of course it could happen. Like I said, there's rumors about he might want to go back to Cleveland, but also, a lot of the murmurs coming out of Cleveland, they've got a young team right now.
Cleveland looks good.
What are they, 5th in the East?
Yes.
They've got a young team. They may not want any part of LeBron James coming back to Cleveland, and because they realize that the East, it's not the same, it's not the same pool of sharks that it used to be where it was one big shark and a bunch of little baby ones. Now you've got a handful of teams over there that could legitimately make a run. You've got your Bucks, you've got your Nets, you got your Sixers, you got teams over there that can compete. It's not going to be a cakewalk to the conference finals like it used to be for LeBron James year after year after year if he goes to Cleveland. And then what would they have to sacrifice to get him in young talent that they built? What would it cost?
Well, you have Mobley.
I think Cleveland should just stand packed and let these guys develop and keep playing. They're doing just fine right now, and they're heading finally in an upward, direction.
I don't think Cleveland would be the only suitor for LeBron James.
No, absolutely not.
Of course, you have
LeBron
Evan Mobley.
James, he may want to go back home, and ultimately LeBron may go where he wants to go,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we all know LeBron is probably going to end up staying with the Lakers. But speaking of Cleveland real quick, you're talking about a team with Evan Mobley, Sexton. Who else do you have? You have Kevin Love playing at a high level. He's rejuvenated right now. So they have a lot of young talent, like you say, and they're playing some inspired basketball night in and night out. They're definitely a team to be reckoned with. Then you have other teams in the East. You have the Heat, who's starting to play well right now. Of course, you have Jimmy Butler just coming back on the horizon. But the Nets, let me get your take on the Nets. Now, I mentioned the Nets earlier. Even when I go this way, I always come back this way and veer right back. I never forget what I'm talking about. I want to get your take on the Nets. What do you think about the Nets' chances now that Kyrie, even though the Nets reneged on what they originally said about he's not going to play for this team if he's not vaccinated, and he's not going to be playing just in road games and yada, yada, yada. Now that's exactly what's going to happen. Because you know why, Eddie? Because the Nets realized, for one, Kyrie was not budging. And I think a lot of that, Kyrie is his own person, obviously, a tremendous talent. But again, like I always like to say, it's not surprising that he's the one who has them in this situation. But obviously, Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, a lot of this has to do with the way Kyrie wants to be perceived long term. He's trying to pull a Colin Kaepernick. He's trying now, granted, yeah, he probably has his beliefs about the vaccination shot and all this and that, but I think a lot of this is just for his legacy so people can say, look what Kyrie did. He stood up against this, and he got his way with this, and so when it's all said and done, look what Kyrie did during the COVID situation. But you know what the Nets realized? The Nets realized that you have Kevin Durant right now who is playing at an MVP level. Now, I haven't talked about KD enough on this show recently, and of course KD is KD. Probably the best player in the game still right now. I mean, the guy can do it all. Pick your poison. I mean, mid-range game, 3-ball, playing defense. He can get his shot whenever and wherever he wants. But they realize the time is now for the Nets. So if they have to acquiesce to what Kyrie wants, that's what they have to do, and that's what they've ultimately done. Now, I was ready to write James Harden off, say he's lost a step. Now he seems like he's getting into shape. You saw what he's able to do on Christmas Day against the Lakers, putting up some big numbers. And last night he had 39 points, 15 assists, and 8 rebounds. I thought he had lost his first step, but it seems like he's gotten that back. He's rounding himself back into shape. So when they get Kyrie back, what do you think their chances are?
It just depends.
He's only going to play road games.
It just depends on how they're able to pull that off, where he's not playing at home, and when you're playing him on the road.
How can you build that cohesion?
Does he start? Does he come off the bench?
He's going to start.
Okay, he's going to start, but okay, then when he can't play at home, what happens if you're getting more production, if you're getting better defense, if you're winning more games? At home than you are away when he's in the lineup, if you're going back through them cumbersome road bumps that we've seen them go through. I mean, at some point in time, we all know that if this thing is going to work, this master plan they had to get these 3 guys together, at some point in time, they got to spend an extensive amount of time on the court together.
Yeah, right.
We still have yet to see it for an extended period of
time.
Not
only on the offensive side of the ball, but defensive side of the ball.
So they're bringing him back. They're hoping that maybe if they can get him playing in away games, somehow, some way, they'll be able to get him playing in home games. Right now, there's no chance of that whatsoever, but I just don't understand how it really helps them, especially when they've been playing so well. Because to me, the biggest factor in how good they're going to be is how well James Harden plays. If James Harden plays as well as he did at times with the Rockets, and then you have KD there as the ultimate leader and the guy who you're going to go to when it's crunch time and when you need that big shot, then now we're talking about a team that I think, especially going in as number 1 seed, they're going to play a lot of games at home. You get in the playoffs, you got 4 games at home, so you're telling me you're going to get Kyrie for those 3 on the road? It's crazy to me, man, but James Harden really is the key that's going to unlock the possibility for Brooklyn to go ahead and bring home that championship. We're only at the halfway point now. A lot can change between now and the end of the year. You look over in the NFL, they're changing their COVID guidelines and protocols as we speak daily, as new information comes out, as new guidelines come out. They're constantly, amending their policies, and maybe the NBA does that as well to an extent eventually. I don't know, but I guess they want to get Kyrie back in shape. They want to get him acclimated at some point. They want to get some type of value for what they're spending on the guy.
Absolutely.
And at some point in time, if it's going to work, he has to get back on the court. But right now, to me, it's all about James Harden. If James Harden can continue to play the way he's played, and if he really has, gotten into that shape to where he's one of the most explosive scores in the entire league,
to the basket,
then things are starting to look like, Brooklyn may run away with the 1 seed, and they may run away with things in the playoffs. We all know they're going to have to deal with Giannis and company. I mean, we're not writing them off just yet.
Oh,
but
I'm not writing the Bucks off at all.
No, but you got championship. You got championship caliber play and championship experience in Kevin Durant, and then you got a guy in James Harden who can get some of your best defenders and best players in foul trouble and also score, an abundance of points and get an abundance of assists, generate tons of offense, at any given time just by himself. That's huge for Brooklyn, and yeah, they're starting to look scary even without Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, and one thing about it, make no mistake about it, the addition of Kyrie Irving, whenever he plays, is going to bolster that offense. And then it's going to give James Harden and Kevin Durant, you can put one of those guys on the bench. I mean, of course, Kyrie is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And of course, we know his scoring prowess. I've never been crazy about Kyrie as far as him being a team player, but we saw what he was able to do, capture that championship ring in Cleveland with LeBron. But make no mistake about it, you're getting a bona fide scorer that can light it up and go for 40 or 50 on any given night. So if one of those guys have an off night, then you have Kyrie Irving right there. I still don't trust their defense. They don't have an inside presence. They don't have anyone that can really score on the inside consistently. So everything is going to be predicated from the outside the three-point line. And, of course, KD has that mid-range game, and he can do some things in there. But they don't have a low-post presence that really scares you. And I don't think they have a defense that really scares you as well. But they do have three tremendous superstar scorers. Now, the Bucks, of course, we're not going to spend too much time on the Bucks tonight because the Bucks are going to be right there. Once they get everyone back and flowing, healthy, Giannis, the Bucks are going to be right there. As a matter of fact, I think it'll be the Bucks and the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals. The 76ers, of course, they're without Ben Simmons, and I don't know what's going to happen with him, but Joel Embiid can't do it by himself. Of course, he has some other players, but if Ben Simmons is not going to play, the Sixers don't stand a chance in that Eastern Conference. Now we can say what we will about Ben Simmons. The one thing about Ben Simmons is his defensive prowess, what he gives you on the defensive side of the ball, and then in transition, here's a guy that can get to the basket or he can drive to the cup and he can kick it out to those shooters. So they can't win without Ben Simmons. Now, they have to replace him with something, obviously, but Ben Simmons, and of course we know he do not shoot the three ball, and I have a lot that I can say about Ben Simmons. But you see he went on and did what he had to do as far as go and get that mental help from what Philly was trying to. They were trying to set him up with someone. At first, he was like, no. Then when he saw that, $350,000 come out of their account, he's probably calling. Let me check my account. Hold on. You have a withdrawal of $300. I'm like, what? Oh, okay. Now who y'all say I need to talk to? But so I don't know what's going to go on with him. But I don't know if they're going to trade him or what they're going to get for him. I don't know. But of course, the Nets, the Bulls are looking good. Zach LaVine. The guy can flat out get it done. Still crazy hops. I'm talking about smooth, can shoot the three ball, can get to the cup. DeMar DeRozan. So they have some players. The Bulls are looking legit. A team real quick that I'm disappointed in.
For Anthony Davis, if he does come available, that they may have the capital to trade for him without having to trade LaVine, to put together a package around DeRozan and some of their other young talent. What do you think about that? How huge could that be for the Bulls? Things are.
If the Bulls can get,
I feel like this NBA
if
trade
they can get
deadline
him without
is
getting rid
going to
of
sneak
Zach
up
LaVine
on
and
us.
DeMar DeRozan,
I think it would take DeRozan. I think they have to build a package around DeRozan.
Not the way DeRozan's playing right now. I wouldn't trade DeRozan.
But
this is probably his best season he's had.
Anthony Davis. I think there's a lot more he could do.
Davis,
I think
right.
there's a lot more he could do in Chicago than there is in LA. It just seems like a better fit to me. But hey,
that's interesting.
It's only a rumor, that they would be interested and they'd be willing to move those guys.
Okay.
But, things could change as the team evolves. Like you said, the Bulls playing really well right now. You may not want to mess with a good thing. But like we all know, when it comes playoff time, and if you find yourself deep in the playoffs, you have to have somebody who can compete with some of the bigger centers and bigger guys in the East. So you got to have somebody who can guard Antetokounmpo. I know you talked about the Hawks; they hadn't been playing well, but
they have Lauri Markkanen. They have some players.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But to me, I think he's a guy where if you can trade him in a package and upgrade your center position and get AD, I think you could do a lot. I think you're doing a lot better, of course.
Okay.
But.
And,
like I said, the Hawks,
say okay because DeMar's playing so well, but I get it. It's Anthony Davis. I get it. I get it.
There's
a healthy Anthony Davis.
Right. I think it would be some package around Rosen, Lonzo Ball, and McCarkin.
I like the way Lonzo is playing.
Yeah, and then you to get Anthony Davis, that could be something. And then by doing so, LA replenishes the cupboard a little bit. You spread instead of being so top heavy with Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Now you've got a few guys that, like you said, they're not superstars,
but can play some defense
absolutely,
and maybe
and
shoot the ball.
Play. Yeah, I think that would definitely take some of the weight. You get DeRozan in gold and purple. And I think it takes a lot of the pressure off of LeBron James, a lot of the weight off of his shoulders.
Hey, that's interesting, Eddie. That's
especially
interesting.
with his ability, to handle the basketball.
Right. Now, one team, before we get out of here, one team that I'm very disappointed in, well, two actually. I'm disappointed in the Knicks. I thought they would be higher than they are right now. Like you said, we're at the halfway point. But the Atlanta Hawks, what in the world is going on with the Atlanta Hawks? You're talking about a team, I thought they would be the team that would be right up there with the Nets and the Bucks when it comes down to playoff seeding. But they just do not have an identity. Nate McMillan better be careful. He better be careful because they'll try to find a way to get rid of him. But all that talent they have, a deep roster, and they continue to lose game after game after game. They can't make shots. They're losing to teams that they should definitely beat, and they've just looked so lackluster.
Yeah, I mean, right now they're dealing with a ravage of COVID and injuries right now. I'm not willing to say that that's the total reason why. Mm-hmm. They're 3 games under 500.
Yeah,
there's still plenty of time for them to turn this thing around. We have seen that whenever they do put it together, when Trae Young is playing like a baller and Clint Capella, is playing like the guy that Houston developed him to be, which is a rim running defensive specialist that can also give you some points on offense if you get the ball to him, inside the restricted area, get the ball to him in the paint. And they've got, the young Collins and
right.
And
I like Josh Collins.
They've got the pieces, right
Cam
now
Reddish
struggling
scored
to get
33 last night.
Yeah, Reddish, how long before, that becomes a consistent thing,
Yeah.
Like
and those guys have to stay healthy. They always have a very important player out.
Right.
Trae Young has been out.
Right now, I mean, you pull up their depth chart right now, they've got 12 guys out, damn near. They're reeling right now. But, McMillan got them to get it together last year. I think they can get it together this year. I'm not ready to say, hey, they need to make a change with McMillan or anything like that. Let these guys get healthy, see how they start playing on the back half.
Just give them a chance.
I mean, right now, what are we at? We're at 33
Yeah,
games.
It's early.
So
it's early.
If you find a way to get to the midway point and you're at or above 500 and you're the Atlanta Hawks, I think you got to feel good about your opportunity to turn this thing around, get into the playoffs, and then it's all about matchups then and how you match up against these other teams.
And how you adjust.
And having guys like John Collins and Clint Capella to play tough down low, and then having a guy that can play offense at a superstar level like Trae Young, that starts to scare some people and it had us believing last year they may take it all the way. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
They have been very disappointing, but I'm predicting that they're going to turn this thing around and get this ship.
Well, I would do that
and
as well
sailing in
because
the
it's too
right
much
direction.
talent. It's too much talent, way too much talent. And then Trae Young, Josh Collins, that's one of the best duos in the game right now. I'm just really looking forward to seeing them play like the team we saw in the playoffs last year. But like you're saying, there's a lot of time left in the season, so let's see if they can turn it around. Of course, I'm disappointed in a team that's looking pretty good is the Wolves. I like that young talent with Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and D'Angelo Russell. They're playing like a team that can make some noise in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, that's a trio right there that you can put up against anyone as well. Of course, the Nuggets, Jokovic is still being Jokovic, but they lost your boy with the back injury, Porter. They lost Porter for the season, and of course, you're still without Jamal Murray. You may get him back at some point, but Jokic continues to play well. I'm disappointed in
they're just
the Mavs
right now.
Luka needs to get his ankle healthy. What about the Rockets, Eddie, before we get out of here?
Rockets on a 4-game losing streak.
We should have talked about them when they were on that winning streak.
That's all right. This still is a young team. When you talk about young teams, and
they play the Lakers tonight.
A young, I would say, or a fledgling head coach. Consistency is going to be your biggest issue. And don't get me wrong, I know they love winning games. They love competing. They love knocking off some of these big teams. But right now they're sitting dead last in the Western Conference. And if they were to finish with another lottery pick and a high lottery pick,
where I was about to go.
It would not bother them one bit. So they are developing these guys, but if they start winning too much, don't be surprised if you see them take their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's happening here. But
they won 7 in a row at one point.
Naturally and organically, these guys are going to ebb and flow and struggle.
Absolutely.
To keep things consistent as they try to figure out how they're going to play all their talent at one time, and if they're going to play Christian Wood and Şengün at the same time.
I think they should. I think Şengün has a chance. I think between him and Jalen Green has just come back from the hamstring injury, and he scored 20 in this first game. I think Sengun and Jalen Green, I think that's your cornerstone pieces for years to come. I actually think Sengun can be like a Jokic. I really think he can be that good. Now, Christian Wood, I like him as well. But I definitely, the one thing I like, now the Rockets are loaded with talent. Now, they have Kevin Porter Jr. coming back tonight. Jalen Green is going to play tonight again. He didn't play last night in that loss because they're trying to hold him off that back-to-back. So he can play tonight. He's coming off that hamstring. Armani Brooks, Matthews, they have a lot of talent. And you're right, they're going to be inconsistent throughout the season. And I wouldn't mind seeing them get your boy out of Gonzaga, Chet Holmgren, to tell you the truth. I wouldn't mind seeing him on that team. But when I watch the Rockets, the only thing I want to see is the effort. And I like the effort. The talent is there. And I just want to see them continue to grow as a team and play with effort. If they do that, that's all you can ask for.
Right now
and let the chips fall where they may.
They're playing the Lakers here in Houston, down by 3 points, 3 minutes left in the second quarter. If they knock off the Lakers, that pretty much solidifies my feeling on the Lakers right then and there.
That solidifies my feeling on them right now. But again, when they get all these pieces back healthy, we'll just like we're talking about the Hawks.
Of course, we know it doesn't mean anything, but hey.
Yeah, but no, the Lakers do not look good.
If they lose to Houston, the worst team in the Western Conference, things could not get any uglier over there. For a team
LeBron have 35, 10, and 10.
For a team that really swung for the fences when they decided to bring in who they brought in to try to help LeBron James capture another title, a bubble title that it was.
But they brought in a senior citizen team. I mean, damn.
Yeah, went the John
nobody
Gruden
playing defense.
Bring in everybody near 40.
That's it, man. So I kind of saw this coming with the Lakers. And again, LeBron will be 37 tomorrow. He can't carry that team by himself. So we'll see what he does tonight. He's probably going to have some gaudy numbers, but they just don't have the fresh legs on that team to consistently play some defense and keep those good teams at bay, so to speak. But you know what, man? Let's do it again next week.
Let's do it again next week. Let's get out of here and catch the end of that game.
There it is.
Between the Rockets and the Lakers if you want to check them out. And I think there's even some college football on tonight on a Tuesday.
And don't forget about the college football playoffs. And then my Buckeyes Friday night play against Saturday, New Year's Day, play against Utah in the Rose Bowl. I think we're going to win that game. So I'm looking forward to that game, actually. Even though we're not playing for the national championship, do what you have to do, build for next season, finish the season on a high note, and we shall see. Hey, but you listen to the Sports Court, the show that keeps it 100% of the time. Legends live and let live.
And y'all have a good night. That's right. It's the Sports Court. Take it easy. We'll be back next Tuesday.